Hello and welcome to the Mary Houlihan Show.
If you criticize Israel, it is perceived as criticizing Judaism.
It's bullshit.
The reason that I campaign in drag is because I think it's important to be very visibly queer right now.
What do you think about the LAPD?
I think they suck. In Israel, gay people can't even get married.
You can be trans, non-binary, and be hugely popular.
Personally, here to say abolish ICE. I mean, running for office is not for everybody.
Hello and welcome to the Mary Houlihan Show. Today we are joined by esteemed guest, Maebe Pudlo. Clap, 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 clap.
Yes. Hello. Testing. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Fabulous. I'm used to, as a drag performer who's always screaming into a mic, I'm used to like hearing it reverberate across the room.
That's cool. So you're a drag performer, and you're also you're running for office in drag all the time, much of the time.
Kind of. It's interesting because I am a drag performer, drag queen. I'm also a trans non-binary person, so the lines are a little bit blurred.
Sure.
And so, sometimes I'll get done up, especially when I was first elected to the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, like probably the first 3 or 4 years. I went to all of my meetings fully done up in drag, but it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And as my job has changed, I just don't really have the time to get into it before going to the meeting. It's like working 8 hours, got an hour break, and then move on to the 3-hour meeting.
It's a lot to put on gorgeous makeup.
It is.
Yeah. If I could, I would be done up hottie style every day, but it's simply too much.
Totally. If I could just snap into it,
Yes.
then yes.
My problem is heels. I'm bad at heels. But I would love to just look insane every day. I would
Yes.
love
Yes.
that.
Same. Heels. Yeah, I get that. What I typically do is I'll have a second bag that I bring with me that either has my heels and I'm wearing slides, or I'm wearing my heels and the slides are in the bag.
Nice. Very cool. What are you running for?
So I'm running for California State Senate, District 26, right here where we're actually recording. The district is pretty large. It encompasses a lot of central Los Angeles. The district includes close to 1 million people. The boundaries essentially are Central Hollywood to the west, East LA to the east, Eagle Rock and Highland Park to the north, and K-Town to the south, which is
Nice.
pretty big.
Yeah. I heard you passed a ceasefire resolution.
Yes.
Tell me.
I would love to tell you about it. So, firstly, I am a Jewish person, not particularly religious, but I am. And I think that I've been very bothered by this idea that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, because it is not.
Correct.
And so shortly after October 7th, a few months after, I decided to submit a ceasefire resolution to the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council. And, you kind of have to ask, well, what is that going to do? As a member of the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, it's, we're a community, we're sort of micro government. It's the most local government you can be at, which is wonderful for many reasons. You're directly representing your neighbors and everybody in your community. And the intention behind the neighborhood council system is to, neighborhood councils act as advisory boards to city council. So whenever a city council is voting on any sort of legislation or not voting on legislation, we can chime in and say, hey, this is what we want as a community. And so I decided to put forth a ceasefire resolution for our neighborhood council, with also the request for, if it's passed, to send it to city council and have city council do something similar. And that matters because this is the second largest city in the United States. We do have a huge population of Jewish people here. And when I submitted this ceasefire resolution, I was not necessarily prepared for the kind of pushback that I ended up receiving.
Interesting.
It got huge.
That's fucked up.
It's really
You're
fucked up.
Jewish.
Exactly. And so to tell, especially when you have a lot of Zionist people who are not Jews
Oh God.
telling you
The
what's
worst.
exactly. But in particular, I ended up receiving an email from the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles, and it was sent not just to me, but to our entire board. We have 21 members on our board, and they were encouraging us to withdraw this resolution and not even vote on it because it was supposedly filled with anti-Semitic vitriol. And the reference
Again, you wrote, and you're Jewish.
exactly. And so the problem with equating Judaism with Israel is then if you criticize Israel, it is perceived as criticizing Judaism, which is just simply not true. This is why we shouldn't have theocratic ethno-states. So got this email from the LA Jewish Federation, and they were calling me anti-Semitic for submitting this. And what they quoted was this definition used by the U.S. State Department of anti-Semitism. And basically, were calling me out for calling out Israel for being an apartheid state, for engaging in ethnic cleansing, and for this ongoing genocide. And we have to take a stand, especially as somebody who is a part of the Jewish community. You have to be able to take the stand, even if it's not comfortable and even if it's not necessarily the most popular position. So we ended up doing the ceasefire resolution, and it did not pass the first time. And that was disappointing. I had a lot of people show up at the meeting, and you could tell it was a concerted effort because I received the same email like 30 or 40 times, and it was just a copy paste.
Yeah.
And then you see a lot of people in the audience who are kind of just talking about, again, the same talking points. And so it did not pass that night. So it went back to committee, and we made some revisions. I lightened the language a little bit, and we did end up passing this ceasefire resolution, which I was really proud of.
Yeah, you should be proud. That's awesome.
Yeah, because, I think about it from the perspective of if I was a Palestinian, we have so many Palestinians that live in Los Angeles. If I was a Palestinian living in Silver Lake, I would be happy to know that I have representation saying that, having my representative being able to say free Palestine.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think it rules,
Thank you.
especially as Jewish people. I'm not Jewish, but when Jewish people say no, not in our name, I think there's a lot of people who don't know Jewish people at all, and it makes them go, "Oh, I didn't realize. I didn't know that." Like a lot of people, they might just assume that it's anti-Semitic to criticize Israel because they don't know. They don't know a thing about it at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
think
think it rules.
It speaks also to this idea that Jewish people, no population, no community is a monolith. There's no
course.
community where everybody thinks the exact same way. And unfortunately, the rise of anti-Semitism, like actual anti-Semitism, I think is due to the fact that Israel is being so firm about if you are against Israel, then you are an anti-Semite. And it's just not true.
Yeah. Ida also told us to ask you about Adam Schiff.
So I kind of got my start in running for higher office when I decided to challenge Adam Schiff. I made this decision back in 2019. I ran for U.S. Congress in 2020. And the reason I decided to challenge him was because I was not satisfied with my representation. I think, especially at that time, a lot of people very much revered Adam Schiff as, I think they considered him to be this like progressive hero because of how he was challenging Trump. And to me, that is actually the lowest bar, is challenging Trump. That doesn't actually make you a progressive. So while I do respect the work that he did to, impeach Trump and his work with the Mueller reports, when it comes down to it, if you look at his voting record across the board, it's not progressive whatsoever. And Adam Schiff at the time, he had been my representative since I was a sophomore in high school. Well, I didn't live in LA at the time, but he had been the representative for this district since I was a sophomore in high school. I'm turning 40 this year. I'm still 39 and a half.
There you go.
But I just think it's wild how these representatives get elected and they just stay in office. And so many people within the establishment Democratic Party, the DNC, are so unwilling to bring in new leadership. And I actually think it is incredibly democratic to challenge somebody within your own party. Because again, I said earlier, groups are not a monolith, and it applies also to political parties such as Democrats, and especially the Democratic Party is such a big tent party that you can't expect everyone to just think the same way on every single issue. So my big reasons for challenging him were he's a war hawk. He had voted for every single war issue since I was in high school. He voted for the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, the Saudi invasion of Yemen, and at the same time, he is taking all of these donations from weapons manufacturers like Raytheon and Northrop Grumman, and it sort of makes you think about the revolving door of money and
Yeah.
politics and lobbying. And so I had a lot of criticism for challenging Schiff at the time. I had people tell me to my face, "Oh no, how dare you? How dare you? This isn't the moment." The thing is, it's never the moment, but it's
Yeah.
actually always the moment. So I ended up, I ran against him in 2020, and we ended up coming in third place out of 8 candidates, which was pretty amazing for being a first time candidate running for higher office. And I lost the second place spot by less than 1%.
Wow.
Had I made it to the second place spot, I would have moved on to the general election. So with that, I said, I have to do this again. And I ran in 2022, and I ended up coming in second place out of 9 candidates. I advanced to the general election. It was the first time that an openly trans non-binary person had ever advanced to a general election for a seat in U.S. Congress, trying to break the pink ceilings. And didn't win, but I received a huge amount of support. I ended up getting over 60,000 votes in this district. I mean, I don't know 60,000 people, but there was at least 60,000 people that believed in the ideas that I wanted to bring to Congress. And these are not radical, lunatic leftist ideas.
Yes.
These are basic dignities like healthcare, housing, and education, human rights.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that rules. It shows that you can be trans, non-binary, and be hugely popular, which is not really what they want us to think.
Not at all.
Peculiar. It's I'm sure this is purposeful in some regard that you dress in drag at your job and in your campaigning while other states are having like drag bans.
Yeah, which makes it particularly all the much more important. I think some people view it as like this, I don't know, some sort of a joke, but these people have never run for higher office and don't know what actually goes into it. It is wild to believe that somebody would just run for higher office and pour all of this time and energy and resources into something for no reason. But for me, I the reason that I campaign at drag is because I think it's important to be very visibly queer right now, especially given the climate around the queer community. Ever since I've been running for higher office, it is unfortunate that every single year, the number of anti-LGBTQIA bills introduced across the United States just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. And yet we have so few openly queer people representing not just in Congress, but on all levels of government. It's extremely disproportionate compared to the actual number of queer people that exist in society. In 2026, we've had over 700 anti-LGBTQIA bills introduced at the federal level, at state levels. And when I say anti-LGBTQIA, what I actually mean is mostly anti-trans. And I believe there's only 2 states that have openly trans representatives at the state level. We've never had an openly trans person here in California, despite this idea that California is this progressive safe haven for queer and trans people. And in many ways it is, especially when compared to red states. But as a good friend of mine says, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And trans people are very much on the menu right now. We have even had anti-trans legislation introduced here in California this year even. And when you don't have any actual trans people at the table, it doesn't make sense. We don't get to be there to defend ourselves and say why this is wrong. And it's not just queer trans people. It's, these are intersectional issues.
Yes, yeah. So many thoughts. First of all, the whole all of this anti-trans legislation coming in. Obviously there's transphobia out there, but these bills are not representative of a huge public who's so anti-trans and even cares or thinks about this stuff, all of these bills are coming from a couple rich weirdos.
Yep.
It's bullshit. They shouldn't be allowed to waste our fucking time with this.
Totally. It is a distraction, and it is mostly being brought forth by the right.
Linda McMahon.
I want to say the alt-right, but at this point, the whole right is alt-right. And I think it's a distraction from the issues that actually impact everybody in this nation, in this state. People are struggling to afford healthcare, housing, education, gas, groceries. And it's really easy to just point over there and it's, oh, actually, trans people are the problem. Undocumented immigrants are the problem. That's not what they actually call undocumented immigrants. But it's very easy to like pick out these scapegoats, especially because they represent such a minority that they don't actually have a voice. And so if you think about those two communities, trans people, undocumented immigrants, we have very little, if any, representation in governments. And so none of these people are going to be able to stand up and actually say in front of the public, no, you are wrong, when actually they are wrong. So it's this big distraction when what people actually need right now is economic equity, human rights, social justice, and affordability. People just want to be able to exist, and they're struggling to, and yet there's this big conversation around trans people.
Yeah. It's really fucking annoying. And I definitely see overlap between the trans community and undocumented immigrants. A lot of legislation goes after both of them at the same time. Like a lot of these stupid fucking laws, like try to target hospitals, for instance, for if you treat trans people, we'll take away funding. If you treat undocumented people, we'll take away funding. Like they're using the same mechanisms.
Yeah.
I also, certain people will think this sounds totally galaxy brained, but I see so much overlap with trans people and Muslim Americans because there's just so much stupid propaganda about those groups by a tiny, tiny population of people. And there's so much like bad faith. Of course, you've heard in Gaza, they would throw you off a building.
Oh,
Bitch, there are no buildings. You blew them up.
Hello. Yeah, the pink washing. It's so absurd. It's so absurd. And they also neglect to, whenever they make these kinds of statements, you know, they neglect to mention that here in the United States, we have more than 700 anti-LGBTQIA bills. Here in the United States, they'll tie you to the back of a truck and drag you until you die. In Israel, you know, they gay people can't even get married.
Yes, exactly. It's really fucking insulting for like you to tell me as an American that it's so uniquely horrible for gay people in Muslim countries. Like, shut up.
Shut up.
What do you think of Andy Cohen?
Wow. Real twist. I don't know. I feel like neutral.
Yeah.
Neither neutral negative nor neutral positive. Just neutral. I mean, I'm not the biggest Bravo fan, but I've had my fair share of Real Housewives episodes.
Sure, yes.
You know, I know that he does the New Year's Eve thing every year, but I know that his nudes were leaked recently. But that's kind of the gist of what I know about him and my opinions.
Incredible. I'm not a fan. Maybe I'll cut this. He was paid by the state of Israel to be a
okay,
keynote.
I just changed my opinion. All you had to say was paid by the state of Israel.
He was paid to be the keynote speaker at this event in, I believe, the summer of 2024. So, genocide happening, babe.
Yeah, at present.
He was the keynote speaker at this event, teaching Jewish influencers how to make content about, and it's like, we know what that means. It's a dog whistle for like anti-Palestine propaganda. And I feel like everyone knows he did that and they're being quiet about it.
Wow. Well, I didn't know about it and I'm glad you told me. And I think that's horrific.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And
So-
it's like, why do these people still have platforms. Like,
Yes,
I
yeah.
just think 20, 30 years from now, everyone's going to look back and just be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I
And
think
all
so.
the people who were engaged in this are going to pretend that they were not
I
involved
was
whatsoever.
quietly doing things. That's what they'll say.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it'll be sooner than that. I think the tide is turning and people are grossed out by the whole thing.
I hope so.
Yep.
I hope so.
What do you think about the LAPD?
I think they suck, first and foremost.
Mhm.
I think that they are bloated in ego and in our taxpayer money.
Yeah. The budget is very, very, very concerning to me. It's so much money.
Over $3 billion
And
every single year.
yeah, all of like the gear and vehicles and things that they buy. We don't need this.
I don't want more weapons in the
No.
city. I don't want to see drones and tanks and anybody who lives in LA. How many times have you woken up in the middle of the night with LAPD choppers just hovering above your home? If
It's
you're lucky to have a home.
very loud and annoying. So, okay, so a lot of people are impacted by ice. A lot of people are afraid to go outside. What you gonna do about ice?
Ooh, great question. Well, firstly, here to say abolish ICE. We
Mhm.
have to abolish ICE. This is a position that I've held since I was elected to the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, since I started running for Congress and now state senates. And what's interesting is back in 2019, when we were running for the 2020 election, I had abolish ICE on all of our campaign literature. And for some reason, that was kind of like a buzz phrase that really uh, I guess I could say turned some people off. Like I
Mhm,
had some
mhm.
people, I remember I had one person in particular who was like, wow, I really agree with everything that you're running for. Well, except this one thing. And what I find fascinating about that is here we are 7 years later, and now abolish ICE is becoming this mainstream idea that
Yeah.
is popularized by even some, Democrats who you might describe as moderate or
Mhm.
centrists. And which I think really just shows that progressive leftists are always ahead of the
Of
curve,
course.
always ahead of their
Yeah.
times, and are constantly facing pushback. And the only things that are really radical about these ideas is the fact that they don't exist. That's actually that is what is radical about them. But they're not asking for these ideas are not radical in concepts. I have been, as I mentioned, in opposition to ICE for a very long time. I was there during the first major raid, the first major recent raid here in LA, which was almost a year ago. I think it was on June 6th,
Mm.
2025. And I was at City Hall that day. I was accepting an award. I was named the CD13 Pride Honoree for 2025. And it was a really awesome, wonderful experience getting to stand up in front of City Council and just speak on behalf of queer rights and queer issues. I was in full glam. I was wearing this beautiful lavender gown and these sparkly heels, on a high with my certificate and my flowers. And then I'm leaving City Hall with my campaign manager. And I checked my Instagram and I received a message from a fellow activist saying, yo, there's an ICE raid happening in the Pinata district, which is, downtown as is City Hall. So we drove over to see if we could help in whatever way was possible, if anything, just to bear
Mm.
witness. And it turned into this massive thing where basically ICE was there they were doing a raid at a building in the Pinata district. And a lot of neighbors showed up to protest this, like actual real Angelinos.
Yeah.
And then you see these, what I can only describe as tanks rolling through our
Oh my
streets.
God.
And it's these masked agents with these giant weapons. And these are the people that are supposed to make us feel safe. It's quite the opposite. ICE and federal agents moving into California and Los Angeles, they're saying that they're trying to keep you safe, but they're actually creating this big fear amongst people
Yes.
where now our neighbors are afraid to even go outside. They're afraid to
Mhm.
go to work. I actually ended up getting tear gassed and was like, I had to like run away again in like full glam and
Mhm.
sparkly heels. And it was such a bizarre, weird experience. And, I here I am talking, oh, this was upsetting to me. I can't imagine what it was like for the
I
families of
know.
the people that were actually in that building who were ultimately carted off by ICE and federal agents. And I just remember this really sad scenario of these, big unmarked vehicles. They drag our neighbors out, throw them in, and then just speed off. And it was so hard to watch some family members like run after these vehicles, and they just drove off into the distance.
Mhm.
And who knows where these people are, or what is happening. And that really reignited the spark in me to really publicly oppose ICE. And it's not just these big raids, it's also happening at the individual level. One of my neighbors, his name's Raphael, he was abducted by ICE several months ago, and this video came out that went a little viral, and you see these ICE agents dragging him out of his home like he's not even a living being.
Yeah.
They're also totally wearing covered up masks. No way to actually verify if this is ICE or any sort of federal agency. And what really pissed me off about this was just a month or a few weeks prior to that, the California state legislature had just passed this law, which basically demanded that any sort of federal agencies that are conducting their duties, that they do not wear masks, and that
Mhm.
they're presenting their IDs or their badges or whatnot. And so it was a direct violation of California state law. And so obviously I recognize that once I am elected to the state legislature, I'm not going to be able to abolish ICE. But what we can actually do is keep ICE out of our communities, out of our states. And when they are conducting these federal raids, what we have to do is we actually have to require our law enforcement to go after that law
Yeah, of
enforcement
course.
because they're not abiding by our state laws. And I think the way that we do that is by threatening LAPD and LASD that if they don't actually abide by state laws, then they are going to face defunding, which I support either way.
Yeah. Well, that rules. Do you have advice for people who want to run for office?
Yeah, it's like Nike, just do it. Um, I mean, my origin story, I saw an ad on Facebook that Silver Lake Neighborhood Council was having their elections, and I thought, huh, I'd like to be involved in local
Mhm.
governments. And I went to a few meetings and thought to myself, oh, this seems like something I'd really enjoy, getting to talk about these local issues and how they impact our neighbors and our community. And I ran and I won. And here I am in my fourth and final term. And it's been truly like just this really wonderful, honorable experience to be able to represent my neighbors as a progressive leftist. We talked earlier about the ceasefire resolution. That was something I was really proud of. But I was also really proud to more recently be able to pass a resolution to condemn and abolish ICE,
Mhm.
and again, ask our city council members to follow suit. I was really proud to pass a resolution to declare Silver Lake a safe haven neighborhood for trans people. And again, also ask the city to do the same. And so I guess you can actually do it if you want to make a difference in your community. I mean, running for office is not for everybody. It's not for the faint of hearts. You do have to have a thick skin. You have to have a resiliency, especially if you belong to a marginalized community, because you
Mhm.
are going to face, insults and really awful things said to you. But what I will say is, I very rarely have anybody have the gall to say these things to my face. It's
There you
always
go.
these,
Mhm.
these online trolls, these private accounts, and it's just actually really, really pathetic. So the online world reality versus the real world reality are much different when it comes to actually being in politics and governments. So I truly encourage everybody to run. I think we need more everyday people in office. I always like to say, uh, picture what a politician looks like in your head. And it's most people will picture an old, wealthy, cisgender, heterosexual, white, educated male.
Suit
And
and
this is
tie, babe.
and that's not what our communities look like.
No. I think you rule.
Thank you. I think you rule.
Well, I hope you win. And like you said, these ideas like aren't radical as
Yeah.
much as the stupid ass media tries to make everything culture, left versus right. People care about their neighbors.
Do you-
People really don't care if their neighbor is trans or immigrant if it's
no,
their neighbor.
no. Do you want to hear how we're going to pay for it all?
How?
Because that's one of the questions I get all the time
Uh-huh.
is, oh, I love this idea. Universal health care, housing for all. How are you going to pay for it? Well, first, defund law enforcement,
There we
which
go.
takes up such a massive chunk of our city budget, our county budget, our state budgets. I'm for a wealth tax, a billionaire tax, which you'll hear these arguments from the right. It's funny, you'll hear these arguments from people who will never be billionaires.
Of course.
They'll tell you, oh, well, billionaires are just going to leave your
No, they're
state.
not. Shut up.
They're not. California is so wonderful and beautiful and has
Yeah.
so many resources. And when you actually look statistically at a state like Massachusetts, they several years ago instituted a millionaire tax, a wealth tax. And guess what? They actually have more millionaires now, and they actually have more money for social services.
There you go.
We also institute a vacancy tax.
Mhm.
So when we talk about how do we house everybody, it's a few different things. What we have to do is we have to repeal some trash laws like the
Mhm.
Ellis Act and the Costa-Hawkins Acts, which allow landlords to mass evict tenants under the guise of taking their building off the market. What they actually end up doing is renovating and then charging 2 or 3 times the rent, and then nobody in the neighborhood can afford it. What we also need to do is enact a statewide rent freeze until the minimum wage matches the livable wage by county. We're not paying people enough to
Yeah.
actually be able to live, especially when we have these corporate real estate developers who are charging us up the ass just to exist in a tiny little apartments. And then we also need to build 100,000 units of permanent supportive housing here in LA County, an additional 100,000 units of permanent supportive housing across the rest of the state of California. We've got to decriminalize homelessness, which means here in LA, repealing 4118, which basically just makes you a criminal for existing poor in public. And with this vacancy tax, what we do is if there is I also want to clarify, I'm not talking about like mom and pop buildings, mom and pop landlords who have 6 to 8 units. If you're a corporate housing developer and you have this massive project with these unaffordable units, if they're not rented out, my idea is that after 3 months, a vacancy tax kicks in, unless you agree to reduce the residential rent or the commercial rent. If you disagree, then a vacancy tax kicks in, and then that vacancy tax is used to fund the construction and maintenance of permanent supportive housing. So we actually can house people. We can actually give people healthcare and education. It just requires getting people in office who are not beholden to corporate donors.
We can afford it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. They're liars. Anything else?
Follow me on Instagram. Donate to our campaign. I'm a grassroots corporate-free candidate. While I have not raised nearly as much as my corporate opponents, I'm really proud that we have over 2,000 individual donations. Difference is my opponents are getting these multi-$1,000 donations. I'm being supported by my very neighbors who are donating on average $23. So I'm actually being supported by the people who are going to elect me to represent them rather than a corporation. So if you have the means to donate, please donate. Please volunteer. Election is coming up soon. We still need help with knocking on doors. We've got a postcard party coming up soon. We're going to be doing some more phone banking and text banking. Again, follow on social media at Maebe a Girl. That's Maebe. Or you can also find out more information on our website, which is maybeforstatesenate.com.
I love it. Volunteer, follow maybe. Get them elected, will ya? Okay, bye.
See ya.